Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right in to tackle one of the absolute biggest buzzwords in personal finance right now, work optional. I mean, it sounds like the ultimate dream, right? The idea that you've got enough money invested so you're only working because you want to, not because you actually have to. But what happens when you sit down and really challenge that dream? What happens when you run the hard numbers? Well, today we're taking a pretty radical reality check on the whole work optional lifestyle, and we're going to explore a genuinely fascinating backdoor escape route. Okay, let's dive into this. Our source material follows a 43-year-old creator who finally decided to just crack open a spreadsheet and calculate their own numbers. Their goal was honestly pretty straightforward: replace their current salary and bring home $70,000 a year in retirement. But when they plugged those inputs into a standard financial calculator, this was the official work optional age it spit out: 74.8 years old, literally almost 75. Imagine being 43, staring at a screen that tells you you've got to grind away at your desk for another 31 years before you can even think about stepping away. Honestly, it's enough to send anyone into an absolute spiral. Section 1. The work optional illusion. Why traditional FIRE fails the average earner. Look, the traditional path to financial independence is heavily skewed toward high-earning tech engineers. For the rest of us, it basically comes down to a crushing, nearly impossible portfolio target of $1.75 million. Yep, the calculator dictates that to safely pull that $70,000 a year, you need a net worth portfolio of $1,750,000. For a late starter, or really just anyone making an average income, trying to organically reach that massive number feels, well, entirely impossible. It completely validates the frustration of anyone out there who feels like they're falling behind. Section 2. The identity trap. The psychological toll of leaving work. So let's pivot for a second from the financial math to something that's honestly just as paralyzing. It's a psychological hurdle known as one more year syndrome. This happens when people actually reach financial independence, but they are so terrified of the great unknown that they just keep working. It's fascinating, but kind of tragic too. People will literally physically cross off days on a 90-day calendar, counting down to their freedom, only to invent a reason at the absolute last minute to stay for another 3 months, or 6 months, or a whole year. The finish line just keeps moving because the fear of actually crossing it is just too great. And a huge part of that fear comes down to society. We are actively trained to tie our entire identity to our job titles. Notice the stark contrast here, being a VP of marketing versus having no title at all. When you're in the corporate world, you have this built-in automatic validation. But the second you step away, poof, it's gone. You suddenly have to face the dreaded cocktail party question. So, what do you do? If your answer isn't some fancy title anymore, and you're just sort of sitting at home, it triggers a massive identity crisis. Which brings us to this incredibly hard truth from our sources. You haven't won the game. You've just changed the scenery of your boredom. I absolutely love this quote. It completely hits the nail on the head. True financial success requires so much more than just a massive paycheck. It requires freedom, purpose, and real relationships. If you hit your magic number, but you wake up on a Monday morning with zero purpose and absolutely no built-in community, you are going to be miserable. Simple as that. Section 3, the barista FIRE backdoor. Rewriting the math. So how do we actually fix this? How do we solve both the impossible math and that terrifying identity crisis? Well, it starts with the core concept of barista FIRE. Basically, you stop aiming for a traditional do-nothing retirement. Instead, you build up your portfolio to a much more manageable baseline, and then you intentionally walk away from your stressful, high-pressure career to take a low-stakes part-time job. Doing this completely changes that impossible $1.75 million trajectory we looked at earlier. You aren't trying to save enough to never work again. You're just saving enough to only do work you actually enjoy. I mean, ask yourself right now, which side of this equation would you rather choose? On the one hand, a 60-hour-a-week corporate grind until you're pushing 80, or a fun job like, say, pouring wine at a tasting room 15 hours a week in your 50s? No contest, right? Plus, it totally gives you a fantastic answer for that dreaded cocktail party question. It gets you out of the house, gives you the social interaction you'd miss from an office, and hands you a built-in purpose without all the crushing corporate pressure. And mathematically, the impact of that fun job is absolutely staggering. Earning just $1,500 a month completely transforms your portfolio requirements. It literally slices hundreds of thousands of dollars off the nest egg you have to save up. By just bringing in the small stream of active income, you simultaneously solve the psychological identity crisis and the impossible financial math in one brilliant move. Section 4. The aggressive math. Executing the escape route. Okay, so we understand the concept, but how do we actually execute this escape route in the real world? Well, it requires a foundational shift in your cash flow. To make work optional a reality decades earlier, you've got to optimize your life so that your family is living a high-quality lifestyle on a very specific baseline. For our source, that baseline is just $5,000 a month, and that's even in a high-cost area. By heavily optimizing family cash flow to strictly meet that monthly baseline, you pull the finish line drastically closer to today. And with that optimized $5,000 baseline locked in, we arrive at the aggressive annual savings target, $15,000. This is the exact, totally transparent math the creator uses. By aggressively saving and investing 15 grand every single year into retirement and letting compound interest do all the heavy lifting in the background, they are mathematically clawing back over a decade of their life from the corporate world. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that gets done. Notice how this massive $15,000 goal isn't just one giant lump sum. It's split perfectly down the middle into two distinct buckets. One half is maxing out a Roth IRA at $7,500. Then, the remaining half of the equation is another $7,500 directed toward a 401k or a taxable brokerage account. But breaking those annual targets down into monthly habits, well, that is where the magic really happens. An intimidating $15,000 target suddenly becomes a bite-sized, highly actionable monthly habit. To hit $7,500 a year in the Roth IRA, you just need $625 a month. For the 401k or brokerage, it's another $625 a month. By consistently hitting this $1,250 monthly baseline and planning to seamlessly transition into that part-time fun job later, this massive, unscalable mountain of retirement planning just becomes a totally walkable hill. Section 5. Reclaiming your timeline. So if there is one absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer, it's that work optional is a mathematical formula. It is not an exclusive club. You can absolutely write your own permission slip by lowering your baseline expenses and embracing that barista fire backdoor. But as with any great plan, you've got some strategic choices to make. When allocating that second $625 a month, what do? Do you increase your 401k contributions to grab an employer match? Or do you fund a taxable brokerage so you have early, unrestricted access to that money before you hit age 59 and a half? It's a brilliant, provocative question to ponder as you challenge your own assumptions and figure out your personal finish line. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep building toward your own freedom.